Hey guys, Crave here, and here's a fast review of Remnant from the Ashes final DLC Subject 2923. So this is going to be quick, but the TLDR of it is that it's definitely a must-buy expansion. It takes player feedback from the base game on one important aspect and made it translate pretty well into Subject 2923. However, let's quickly go over the different aspects of it via graphics, story, and gameplay. The new scenes or biomes definitely helped to elevate the experience of the DLC. The new look of Earth setting was definitely a great introduction, but it was a bit disappointing as there wasn't really much that you could do with it. After about 3 runs on the Earth setting or the initial stage of the expansion, I was able to trigger one event where you had to survive waves of enemies, but I think that was pretty much it. Anyway, the Earth setting was great looking as I said, although I do again wish there was more or there were more encounters designed around it. Now, the other settings were also pretty great, with Ward Prime being the second one you visit after the Earth setting, and it's nothing really new as it will remind you of the Lido's Lab expansion. Now, the third one, at least the third general area, is called Rhizome, and it was pretty neat in particular. Rhizome is basically cold weather, like I said, and you can imagine all white setting, nearly all white, but it's amazing how they were able to vary the design of each area, different areas in Rhizome, in spite of them all sharing that same color palette. Just one last bit on the graphics part, it's the enemies and the character models. So they still look pretty great, as I mentioned in my recent review of the base game. The bosses, of course, are really well done, with one of them not particularly amazing to look at, but I think I'll touch on that in the gameplay section and show you some footage so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, for the story or the plot, this is going to be really the shortest part of this quick review, but the story or the DLC, as with the base game, is just quote-unquote enough to sort of push you along. It's not amazing in terms of the telling, but it does offer a good amount of finality, at least when you come to the end of the DLC. Why I'm sort of unsure about that is based on the way the end sequence was done, but you'll see it once you get to finish it. Now, in any case, there are those minimal character interactions with some material hinting at deeper lore. Now, it's pretty sad that this is the final DLC for Remnant, which means that whatever they were hinting at in the game, we might not get to explore the other realms or characters. So really, I'm just hoping that Gunfire is prepping for Remnant 2. In terms of the gameplay, there was a slight risk in not being able to enjoy the actual game before the DLC came out. A week into the release, Gunfire released or sent out a number of patches that sort of broke the game in different ways. I didn't experience a lot of the crashes that other players had been mentioning, but I did have the issue of not seeing items from merchants like Reggie. I was skeptical, but thankfully Subject 2923 released, and I encountered no issues other than the one time the game froze up for me, and that was pretty much it. The DLC really isn't that expensive, so it's a good 4 or 5 hours for a single run, and of course the very extended replayability you get as you try other boss types, or you try to reroll your campaign. Oh, in case you were wondering, there is so far one boss that definitely has different ways of being handled, so it's just like the base game, where if you basically follow a certain sequence, you can get one type of item and a different one if you handle the situation differently. So I'm hoping that there are more nuances like these in the different playthroughs I'll be going through in 2923. While we are on that subject, boss mechanics have definitely improved to be more centered around the bosses themselves. It's not too difficult, but they do offer a challenge and you have less of those ads and mobs that you have to worry about. I think this is where Gunfire really took to heart player feedback. They designed bosses much better this time around, with the exception of one boss in particular, but I think that's because it's glitchy. If it happens to you, you could basically take out this boss without moving from the spot you're standing on. Oh, and by the way, this is also the same boss character that I wasn't too impressed with in the graphics section. The expansion still has different items and weapons that you can equip. Now, from the items I've gotten so far, the effects aren't too different from what you've already seen in the base game or the first few DLCs that came out. They're more like variations to existing ones. Of course, I've only run the expansion a few times, so you might get other weapon types in your own playthroughs. Now, everything else though is still Remnant from a gameplay perspective. It's still Remnant from the Ashes. It's still fun shooting things whether you're a solo player or grouped up with others. I said it at the beginning and I'll say it again. It's a great game and a must-buy for fans of the game. It's also a nice farewell to the surprise hit of 2019. Now, I'm really hoping that Gunfire makes bank with Remnant and works on part 2. There's a lot that they could expand on in this game with the intriguing plot and excellent third-person mechanics. Thanks for watching this, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.